There we go.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Sorry we're a little bit late. Google Gremlins again. Always happens when I'm trying to talk to someone on the west coast of America. Great delight to invite Rincy Ruiz to my show. Rincy, welcome to Live and Uncut.
Hello, everybody. How you
That's
doing?
great.
Hi,
Yeah,
Paul.
it's yeah. Thank you very much. This is I first for the guests actually watching the show. I first met Rincy just last week. We were talking on a show from Street Hunters called The Pub, and he had 7 or 8 guys just throwing questions at him, and I thought you handled it very well actually, Rincy. All the questions that were being batted into you. It was great. But yeah, I just want to get started. I've been following you on Google Plus, but I've never found you for whatever reason on Flickr, and I was just amazed at the following that you've got on Flickr. Has street photography always been your passion, Rincy?
I would say photography first is my passion, and street photography is one of the most fun parts of it that I've come to find.
Yeah.
Something that I really enjoy doing, and something that really helped me to kind of calm down and relax and actually really get to know my cameras, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from there, sort of realizing you were working, and did you lose your job, or was it just a decision to move into photography straight away?
I did lose my job, but I did start in start getting into photography just a little bit before
Yeah.
they laid me off of work. So actually, the loss of it gave me the opportunity to spend a lot more time
Yeah.
taking pictures and practicing and going online and looking at people's work and a lot of YouTube videos, to learn more about photography and learn about the people who share that passion with me.
That's
You
right, yeah. That's one thing you mentioned quite a lot when we were talking last time, and you've mentioned the word twice already, practice. This is
know?
something which I think a lot of guys don't take that into consideration really when they go out to shoot street photography. They just go out camera in hand and rapid shoot away. I'm guilty of it as well. And it's after hearing you talk about it, let's just talk about this practice idea because it's you made a very good point in the conversation we had. You practice both with the camera and without the camera.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can you talk us through that?
Sure. I mean, photography for me is an art of observation, and a lot of times I'll come upon an area or a neighborhood, for example, of downtown LA, or even closer by to me in Burbank, and I gotta observe before I take the picture. So a lot of
Yeah.
times, what I'm doing inside of my head is looking at it and trying to figure out, like, okay, how would I shoot it? What angle would I take? What time of day am I gonna, what looks good? Is it better to shoot it in the afternoon or maybe towards sunset?
Mm.
So those are the type of things that I think go through my mind. What's gonna look better before I actually take the picture. Um, instead of just, I don't know, willy
Walk in
nilly
and
taking
shoot it.
pictures or stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do
yeah,
you
real
actually
thought.
do you actually visit a particular place on a regular basis? Did you, yeah, I don't know whether I'm making myself clear there. Say there's
Yeah,
I'll take a classic example, a corner of a street that you really find an interesting. You get so many different options there. You're going back there on a regular basis to shoot different opportunities.
yes.
Yeah.
Downtown LA, there was a period of time when I just walked around and sort of just took whatever type of pictures, buildings and people, right? And then once I realized that light was a big factor in my photography,
Yeah.
there's only a few corners and streets in LA at particular times of the day where the light is going to shine on that particular
Mm.
corner, that particular street. So over time, I realized, okay, well, a lot of my pictures end up being in these areas, or I end up sitting around or standing around in those areas and observing people and observing light and trying to find um, something happening that's interesting enough to take a picture of
Yeah.
in those areas. So yeah, there's quite a few areas in downtown where I've spent enough time to where I have a good collection of
Yeah.
photos from just actually one particular corner or in front of a specific store. Um, Even certain neighborhoods, right? Because downtown's broken up into districts.
Okay.
So there's the jewelry district, there's the toy district, a financial district,
Hmm.
fashion district. So I mean, certain areas have a specific um, background, a specific look to them. Right? The financial district looks different than the fashion district, for example.
Yeah, of course.
You
Yeah.
know, the fashion, yeah, just very different looks. Even the people that go there are very different. The financial district, you'll see suits and you know, a lot
Of
of
course.
people a
Yeah.
lot more dressed up. So
Yeah.
I get different types of pictures depending on which place I go, and
Yeah.
so yes, I have a collection of photographs from each sort of different
Yeah.
places over time.
How about taking the street portrait of an individual? Is this something which you found difficult to break through to do, or did it just come naturally to you that you break like a little bit like Eric Kim, for argument's sake, just go straight up to the guy, take the photograph, and then walk on? What sort of style is it when you're doing street portraits?
It came difficult at first, and actually, Eric's was the workshop where you know, I came up with a subject. He said to come up with a subject to do for the workshop towards the end, and so I decided to sort of get over my personal fear of
Yeah.
taking pictures of people or approaching people that I would start with this, and it was people with hats. Specifically at the time, it was fedoras because I wore
Okay.
one myself,
Yeah.
and so that sort of I felt that it made it easier to approach people with fedoras because I had one, and it was a good um, conversation opener, etc. Um, but really, it's the act of right. That's the hardest part is actually
Yeah.
walking up to somebody with an expectation to get their, you know, to take a picture of them.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part because you know you gotta step up. So the first was very hard. The second, you know, as I approached people, got easier and
Hmm.
easier. Um, my
Do you still
nerves
get knocked
started to
down now?
calm
Do you
down.
still get people saying no, thank you? Just put their hands up and delete
That's
that, please.
the other thing is you're gonna have a lot of people say no for
Yeah.
whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with. I've learned it has nothing to do with me and more to do with their personal thoughts on being photographed by some complete stranger.
Yeah. Sure.
So it's a two-way street here.
Yeah.
They have some sort of fear. I've learned over time that you know, it's about my energy.
Yeah.
Right? It's about how I approach. It's about why I'm approaching. It's
Mm.
about the vibe, the energy that I'm putting out there as I'm
Mm.
approaching, and
Yeah.
that fear didn't help me at all. So it was just what really worked was true curiosity, true interest in that person.
Yeah.
Um, you know, maybe walking up to them, saying hi first, introducing myself. You know, those kind of things that
Yeah.
talk to the person on a personal level and not just, you know, I have students that walk out and just say, "Hey, can I take your picture?"
Yeah.
That's not gonna work most
It's not
of the
going to work.
time,
No. Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like, hey, give me your money. Hey, with anything, right, that you don't
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
and you're
I know
already
what you're saying.
asking
Yeah.
for something is
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
work
Rather
as much
than
as if
rather than
you're really
striking up a conversation first.
exactly,
Is that the way to
exactly.
breaking the ice, really, aren't you? Interesting.
Right.
You mentioned your students there, so you're doing your own workshops now.
I do. I've for about that's I think about 2 years now, or at least a
Lovely.
year for the most part. Um, you know, I've done a few of the group type workshops. I've helped out with Eric's. I've spoken at some of Eric's workshops.
Yeah.
Um, I've moved towards uh, a one-on-one type of workshops.
Okay.
I like that better. It's more intimate. I'm able to focus on what the person wants to learn or wants to focus on
Yeah.
for the hours that they spend with me. Um, I
What's a
feel like they
typical
get a
length of
lot more
lesson
out
then
of
you
it.
would? Sorry to interrupt you. What's your typical length of lesson then that you would give to a one-on-one student?
It's approximately 5 hours
All
in
right.
downtown
Okay.
LA. Yeah, so it's not short and it's not long.
No, that's right. So you
I
spread that
it,
over a lunchtime, do you?
yeah, yeah,
Then have a chat and talk about a few things. Yeah.
yeah. Actually, that's how I started off. I
Right.
you know, we go through it once they contact me. We go through some email back and forth. I ask a few
Hmm.
questions about exactly what they want to focus on, what they want to get out of the day. I have a look at some of their work,
Yeah.
and once we meet up, then that's all I go through. In the first maybe half hour, 45 minutes is discussion, um, what we're going to be going through the next few hours. But yeah, probably the first hour or so um, in discussing everything
Yeah.
really helps because a lot of people it's like, okay, what I want to break through the fear of approaching people to take their picture, or just the mentality of being out there taking pictures.
Yeah.
And then
And
the rest of
do
it
you,
is composition, light, all the technical stuff.
yeah,
Um,
there's two things that are coming across here basically in what we're talking about. Light is obviously a major factor in obviously taking photography, but something which you're really um, also what I'm focusing on, for want of
sure.
description, and obviously composition as well. But at the same time, it appears I get the impression that probably you're asked more often than not, how do I get across that line? How do I start taking street portraits? Is that the way things are
Sure.
working for you?
It works for both
Mm.
street portraits and just out doing, taking candid shots.
Yeah,
There's a certain fear that people have of just being a certain proximity, right,
yeah,
with people, and a lot of it's all mental. It
yeah.
is. It's all what you're thinking. Yeah, there's no way you can read people's minds and know what they're thinking.
Exactly. Yeah,
So I'd rather not. I'd rather not have people think about that and just
no,
focus on what's going on in their head and
yeah,
focus on what they want to do, and the energy that they have inside. Whether because what happens a lot of times, and this has happened when I just started, was I'd get really nervous.
hmm,
I'd have some anxiety, and so that was the energy that I was putting out there. And
I'm with you.
so when people think, oh, well, people are going to think I'm creepy, people are going to think um, that something's wrong with me or that I'm doing something wrong,
Yeah,
all of these things that people are putting inside of their heads to make them feel scared or feel nervous. Again, that's all happening up here. Nobody else
yeah,
knows
yeah,
about that
yeah,
until you put that energy out and you act in a way that makes you look like a creep, that makes you look nervous, that makes you look that. That's the only time that people are like, hey, well, something's wrong here. They might not
mm,
know exactly what it is,
mm,
but
mm,
they know you're being shifty. They know you're being a little
yeah,
bit sneaky, right?
yeah.
So it's just really not thinking about any of those things and thinking of just replace those thoughts with, well, I'm going out to practice. I want to do better at what I'm doing. How am I going to use my camera? What angle I'm going to take?
Mm.
This person's very interesting. I want to take a picture of him. how am I going to do that? How do I introduce myself?
Yeah.
Um, you know, the important things, the things that will actually get the picture,
Yeah.
instead of all the things that that won't, because all the other stuff won't help at all.
Yeah, that's right. Let's talk about gear. When you're out shooting, what's your preferred camera for your street shooting, Rinsey?
Well, right now I'm shooting with the Fujifilm X-T1,
Right.
with the mostly with the 23 millimeter 1.4 lens. I'm also shooting with a Samsung NX30, and the lens that's usually on there, because it's such a small pancake type lens, is a 30 millimeter f.2. Those are great. I think still my favorite camera that I've had for a while now is the X100, just
Yep.
because of the size, the fact that it's got a fixed lens, and I mean the image quality. I don't have to talk about that. That it's everyone knows
Yeah.
it's great. So, but just the fact that I can just slip it on, I don't have to
Yeah.
think about, oh well, what lens do I have to bring today?
Yeah. Very true.
Um, and it's very light. It's very quiet.
Yeah.
You know, in New York, it was so silent, even on in the subways.
Yeah.
So, you don't hear this cut clack and everybody looking
Yeah. What's
where
going on?
that
Yeah.
came
Exactly.
from. I
Yeah.
mean, that's still
It-
something where you can either care that that happens or not care that there's a
yeah.
loud clicking. But it does help when you're trying to do something where you don't want to disturb the scene. You don't want to
What you're
get
seeing exactly. Yeah.
somebody's to
Yeah.
snap out of whatever it is that they're doing,
Yeah.
to have something that's quiet. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
about as quiet as an
Yeah.
iPhone.
And that's the
It's
100, not the S, or is that the one? Is that the 100S?
it's the previous. I
The
don't
first
have
one,
the S yet.
X100.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm personally waiting for the. I hope it comes out because I'm a Fuji user. I use the XE1. I don't know whether you can see that.
Yes.
Yeah, I
I
use the
see it.
XE1. I bought the XE1 mainly because I wanted the 1855, and that was going to be my one camera, one lens. And
Nice.
I just love it. It's a lovely bit of kit. But I'm waiting for the upgrade to the X100S. I'm hoping there's going to be one of those coming out soon, and I'll get that as well. And then I'll think
Well,
I'll look to
the rumor is
upgrade.
that there's what was it? The rumors the X100T or
That's
something.
right, yeah. I think a
Yeah.
certain Mr. David Hobby unfortunately put some images out on Flickr, and they were very, very quickly deleted because the EXIF was out.
I saw it.
The EXIF data was out. You read the same post,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
they quickly. So thank you for that, David. But yeah, that's. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think I think they're talking about around about September time, October time, after Photokina. So that'll be interesting.
Right.
But yeah, so it's interesting you use the Fuji. There's a lot of Fuji users out there now. Do you use the Fuji for your corporate work? Because you do a bit of corporate work as well. Is that right? Your
Uh,
commercial work.
sure. I've done well, mostly just events and a few weddings here and there, portraits,
Yep.
headshots, and I've used I was able to get the 56 millimeter 1.2 from
Hmm.
Fuji, and wow,
Yeah.
I really like that lens.
Yeah. I've heard
It's
nothing but
great.
great reports about it.
I've always loved the 85 millimeter field of view.
Yeah.
I have it for my Nikon gear and the Samsung gear as well. The 56 is great. It's just a lot lighter too than the Nikon, for example.
Yeah.
That lens. Um, it's yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, but
So
I have been using my XT1 a lot more
yeah,
for work purposes, and the Nikon gear is just sitting in the bag. I
hasn't
mean, I'll
left the
bring
shelf.
it just as an emergency backup.
Mm.
But yeah, it's amazing that something so light I can just
Would
with even all the other lenses, the 35, the 18,
yeah.
which is pretty much all I have right now. Is the 35, the 18, the 23, and the 56.
Okay.
And even with
So
those lenses in a bag, is a lot lighter than the
exactly, yeah.
Nikon gear
So
on the.
when you actually go out on your street photography, let's say for argument's sake you've chosen to go out with the XT1. Would you take a selection of lenses with you, or would you just take one lens? I suppose this comes down to whether you're actually practicing, for want of description, or whether you're actually doing some project work. Would you just say, right, I'm going to put the 56 on to get some really great portrait shots, and that's all I'm going to concentrate on the day? Or do you go out with the idea of creating a project, so you're going to take a few more lenses in your bag?
Well, typically, what I was waiting for the 23 1.4 because it's basically the same focal length as the X100.
Yeah.
I end up just bringing that lens for the most part if I'm out in the street.
Right.
And then, yeah, once in a while, I might bring the 56 just to practice with that field of view and with that lens and on the camera. Once in a while, I'll bring a bag and have maybe the 18 millimeter or maybe the 35. I'll just bring maybe one extra lens, but it's always going to be like, okay, if I'm going to bring the 56, and then I'm going to bring something wider along with it, right? So it's just having at least an option to be able to go a little bit wider or a little bit more tele.
Yeah.
And really, that's it. And it keeps the bag really light. What really makes the bag heavy, I'm sure you'll probably know about this, is all the batteries you have to carry.
Exactly right.
Fujifilm. So I have like 2 or 3 batteries, sometimes in my pocket or in the bag. And that's what
I take, obviously got a battery in the camera. I take 2 spare batteries myself. That suffices for me. But they're the most heaviest things I suppose you take in the end. But it's the amount when I've went on a few walkabouts with my camera club. There'll be the guys out there with their camera, their Canon 5D Mark IIIs and all the other cameras and the Nikon D3s and all this business, and they're lugging around about 4 or 5 cameras in the lenses in the back of these huge shoulder bags, and by the end of the day they're totally exhausted, and they've only used one lens. They've probably just switched immediately to something like a 10-24 and just concentrated on that, but they've still got the 7300 in the back of their bag, and they're absolutely exhausted, and they come in sort of all slumped over. And of course, I'm, as we say in the UK, here fresh as a daisy. I'm just one camera, one lens. That's all I got, guys. Here we go. I'll tell you what we're going to do now, folks. Those that are watching, we're going to go and do some screen share. Let's show some of Rincy's work. I'm going to first go to Pinterest. Hopefully this will come up. We're going to go to Pinterest where I've downloaded. Just ignore all this for a minute. It'll go away. Is that just on a single? Can you see that now, Rincy?
I can.
Yeah, just bear with me one sec. Oh, now you've got an email in front. Just bear with me one sec, because I want to concentrate on my screen. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, for the viewers, some of these are quite small, but we're going to go through some of these images which I selected, and then I'll switch over to Rince's website, which is just fantastic. Some of the images I can see from some of these images that I've selected here, Rincy, there's some mono and there's color. Dare I ask the question, is there a preference that you prefer to shoot? Do you prefer color or do you prefer mono?
I prefer mono.
You do?
I mean, black and white is what I started off with. I've practiced a lot more with black and white. I mean, as far as processing it as well. I mean, I've done a lot more in that. I don't know. I just like it better. Yeah.
Okay. I like this shot here. This is, this lady sitting with the American flag over her, and but there's a lot of shadow there. But you've got the light on the flag and on the lady's face. And this is downtown LA, is it again?
Actually, that was in New York City.
I was in New York, right? Okay.
Yeah.
She wasn't aware of you taking the photograph at all. You just
no.
Straight past, snap, boom, lovely, nice, strong red color, love it, and the black, obviously, the shadows. Going to concentrate more on the color images to start off with. This one, I love this one. Okay. You got the lovely red tag there in the guy's hat, and then the red staircase. Again, this strong shadow. but the light on the back of the jacket and the stairs, it's a beautiful image. Where was this taken,
That was in
Renzi?
downtown Los Angeles in
Right.
the Fashion District area. I actually
Okay.
get kicked out of that exact spot quite often.
Really?
Yeah, the security guards come out and
Oh,
tell me
God.
to get out of there.
Is it a public area?
No,
Oh, right. Okay.
it's in front of a bank, an
Oh,
institution.
okay.
And so I get to talking to the security guards, and they say, well, technically you're not supposed to be taking pictures of stuff. And I'm like, well, why are you guys putting pretty things in front of your buildings then? And they're like, well, you can take a picture of that, just don't take pictures of the building, and all
Yeah.
these other excuses for not taking pictures of that place. So
Yeah.
very
Let's move on
interesting.
to
But I left things in color because it made sense to me to leave it in
Yes.
color, and that was really the only reason.
Yeah, I can understand your split there on the fact that there are some images here which I'm showing the color ones first. They have to be in color, don't they? If
For
they
me,
were
yeah,
mono, they wouldn't work for want of
right.
description. For instance, this one I think is a classic. I think that if this was in mono, I think it'd be still good, but because it's in color, it gives us that extra dynamic in the image.
Right. Yeah.
Whereabouts was this taken?
This
LA
is in
again?
downtown LA. Yeah,
Yep,
it's
yeah.
actually just stepped out of my car. It was at the parking lot where
Mm, yeah.
I left my car. I walked over. I was like, did a double take, kind of, moved up and down and to try to get the right level
Yep.
for the reflection of the building. And yeah, there you go.
There you go.
It's
That's great.
that the eastern building. It's the blue one on the right, or the sort of the aqua color one on
Yeah.
the right is a very recognizable building in downtown LA.
Right. Okay.
So yeah,
That's great. This one for me, I just don't know why, but when I looked at it the first time, I thought that reminded me so much of Soul Lighter's work.
sure,
I don't know why. I think it's probably because of the layers.
okay.
But tell us about it because this intrigues me. Am I looking at a reflection here? Am I looking at a poster? Tell me about it.
It was a little bit of both
Oh,
actually.
right.
It's a advert on a bus stop, and
Right.
that bus stop happened to be on the corner where the light was hitting it just the right way. And again, I was just moving my head around trying to find the right sort of angle to take, and it worked out where the eye was there, and the building was in the background behind me. The sun was setting towards that part of the city,
Yeah.
and I saw I even forget what the advertisement was for.
Yeah. Doesn't
It
matter,
wasn't
does it?
it wasn't a very happy one,
No.
if I remember correctly. But yeah, it really worked out for me. I took a bunch of different ones of these, like different, slightly different angles or different crops, and this one really worked out for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know why it just picked out. I thought that to me is so Soul Lighter. He is my favourite street photography
He's
of
great.
the old masters. He's just superb,
Yeah,
isn't he? Yeah.
yeah, I love his work too.
This one I think is just beautiful,
Oh,
absolutely beautiful. You've got a lovely haze over the girl's face here, and the muted colours behind. Have you done much work on the processing side of this image, Rincy?
I didn't really have to. I mean, just a little bit. Because it was a portrait. This is
Yep.
a friend of mine, and we were working. Actually, that day I was gonna be shooting headshots, and she was helping me out.
Okay.
She was in the car, and I looked over at her while she was sitting in the car, putting on her makeup, and I stopped her. I said, "Hey, don't move. Actually, move a little bit further, closer to the window." And I had the XT1 with the
Right.
56 on it,
Right. Okay.
and just found the right angles where her eyes were shown, and you could see some of the reflection, or at least the shadow that the tree above us was casting, and
Mm.
little dabs of light hitting her, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one too.
Yeah, it's a
It
great
came out
image.
really
Great image.
nice.
Now,
Yeah.
actual fact, I don't know whether you remember this artist, Peter Gabriel. You know, the ex-Genesis singer. He did a photograph on his
Yeah.
album, his first solo album, and that reminds me of it. That was also taken through a windscreen with the raindrops on the windscreen. That's what's coming
Yeah.
over to me here. But this one's better because it's this lovely looking lady here. Lovely looking lady.
I'll let her know.
Let's have a quick look at some monos here. I love this. Just love it. The little. I'm assuming that's a little girl.
Yes.
Uh, jumping. She's clean off the ground. You can tell by the shadows not in contact with her. That's just perfect, isn't it? Well, LA again, I assume.
Yeah, this is one of the corners,
Right. Okay.
Fifth and Broadway,
Uh-huh.
where there's just a lot more foot traffic in that area, and
Yeah.
the light is good, depending on the time of day it is.
Uh-huh.
And because there's a lot more people walking around, there's just a lot more opportunities. And so you had this little kid was just skipping across the street, trying to catch up with her with the rest of her family,
Yeah.
and I caught her there mid stride. Yeah, to me it just it's symbolic of just how playful kids are.
Yeah.
And that also, I mean, you go downtown, and there's really um, usually not the place for that kind of thing, for kids
No.
to be running around and just playing. So I also felt there was some sort of juxtaposition there.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
And
so,
it's a joyful shot because you can see this kid is obviously enjoying herself. She's not
yes.
moping around. Yeah, that's very
Uh,
true. So another image here. Strong shadows again, but you've got this
yeah.
brightness on the light on the two ladies walking. Caught the bird in flight as well, if you can see the
Yeah.
cursor, which is great. And just to show a bit of activity, you got another person walking in from the right hand side. A lot of guys would have cropped that off,
Sure.
but to show some activity, you got the other person walking in from the right. It's a nice
Yeah.
capture there.
Yeah. I left.
So
I think I kept. Well, it just gave the eye to go something too, and then back to the ladies.
yeah,
You know. Yeah. The bird, I think, was just a very lucky part of that
it just
image.
happened exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Because sometimes
one
you can
here.
wait all day for a bird, and they'll never come. I've waited for birds for a while, strictly just to get a bird, and
Yeah,
yeah, it took up forever.
never came along. This is Empire State in New York, is that right?
Yes.
Lovely shot.
That was a good time there. Although it was probably one of the hottest times of. It was around this time of the year, around July.
Right.
Um, it was really hot, and once in a while it would rain.
Yeah.
So that's why there were a lot of
You got the
clouds.
clouds there, yeah.
And it seems to be the case when I travel to New York. Um, I'll get there and it'll be overcast a lot.
Yeah. The clouds
So
follow you around.
yeah, it's a funny. My aunt mentioned the same thing. She's like, every time you come here, you bring the rain. I'm like, what is that? And I think that's more of a joke, but I think it's just the time of the year that I go, where it just happens to be that. And
Yeah.
then towards
Yeah.
the end, yes, the sun starts to come out, and I get a
Exactly
few
right. Yeah.
shots the way that I like
You-
to, but the
If you're
rest
not
of it is
if you're not careful, they're going to bar you from New York. You're going to say, "Stay away, Rincy. Don't want you there." Let's have a
um,
look at this one before we move on. He's having his photograph taken by. Is this on a workshop?
no, that was. If you know who that is, that's Joe Wigfall.
No, I don't know.
Look him up on YouTube.
Right.
That's so funny. I think my friend Clay Clay Butch took this while I was taking. Yeah, okay, because I met up with a friend of mine, Clay, out in New York. He was really great at showing me around and bringing me to new places that I hadn't been before. But
Mm.
also, Joe Wigfall is a street photographer from New York. He's a businessman who shoots on his lunch times and
Right.
whatever free
Okay.
time he has. And used to shoot a lot more um, in the past. So it was really cool to meet him. He's a super nice guy.
Hmm.
Uh, and I mean, it was really good, like good opportunity to have met him at the time. Let me see
Yeah.
if I can find. You know what? I'll find it later and I'll send it to
Yeah.
you. But
Give me the link there later on, and I'll put it
yeah,
in the blog when I send it.
yeah.
I just what I want to do here very quickly before we go any further is go to these are just slide through, I think, as we there's a couple of images on here which I want to hear what you have to say about them, particularly this one.
Okay.
Um, Tell us where it was taken and what was it. It looks to me as though it was a deliberate, in other words, set up portrait shot. Am
It
I
was
right?
actually uh, a very quick shot.
Candid grab.
One of those ones where my instinct took over more than anything else.
Mm.
This was a few years ago. This is one of my first favorite shots. This is where I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think
Yeah.
I have something here. If I can get more things, more photographs like this.
Yeah.
And this one is very memorable to me because it also, you know, I let photographs teach me my own
Yeah.
as well, and for my mistakes and my successes. And this was one of the ones that, um, taught me the importance of light and what I can do with light
Yeah.
to emphasize an image to make it look more interesting than just a simple
Yeah.
photograph without light or in the shade. Um, Probably one of my most favorite photographs. Um, Probably my most viewed. Probably it's also because of how long it's been out.
Yeah.
But this was in Little Tokyo. I was walking around with a friend of mine, just learning, practicing, and there was a parade happening to the right. So
Okay.
opposite him was a whole parade. It was a Japanese American veterans parade.
Mm.
So from Korea War to all the wars, basically they had a parade for them. So anyways, I was walking down and I was like, okay, well that's great, the parade's great, et cetera, et cetera, but there's got to be other things. So we're walking down and just off the left of my eye, I saw him standing there. He's a doorman. I'm assuming he's a doorman or a security guard of that particular establishment.
Yeah.
Standing there, and literally, I saw him, turned towards him, clicked, and then I walked away. Um,
Fantastic.
I chimped, right, because I was still learning, so I chimped
Yeah.
and was like, "Oh wow, I really like that," and then never thought of it again until I got home and processed it, and I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I really, really
Yeah.
like this.
You see, that's one thing which I'm going to come to now. Actually, I'm going to come out of the screen share because when we that was great. Actually, listening to you talk about your images, absolutely great.
Thank
The
you.
I think one of the things you said in when we had the chat on the pub, which really surprised me, and that's the processing after your work, the processing how you go about it. Um, that you download your images
Hmm.
and then you leave them. You leave them for 2 or 3 days,
Hmm.
um, and go back and then start the process of choosing your best image, and then doing the work on the image. Could you? I just found that fascinating because I think there's a lot of photographers out there, especially myself, come home, download, and start working on them straight away because it's fresh in my mind as regards to how I viewed that image. Your style is light and shadow, and to me it's heavy on the shadow side. Can you talk us through this process for the viewers that haven't seen that part? Because I just found it fascinating the way that you've made that decision how to do your processing.
Sure. The waiting part or the actual processing?
No, when you finish your day shooting and you get home and then you download your images and then go on from there.
So, if I've shot for a day, I might have, these days there's a lot less on my SD card than there was when I first started. Definitely a lot more, I wouldn't say picky, but yeah, there's some of that. But just a little more aware of what I like versus what I don't like, and what I want to capture versus like just, I feel like I've taken a lot of photos over the last few years, and now I'm figuring out, okay, well, this is what works for me, this is what doesn't, and so I'm very more careful of what I'm shooting.
Yeah.
So okay, I get home and I'll, I might just upload it just so I have it on my computer already, and sort of just browse, because there's maybe 10 images, maybe 15. There's not a lot. It's not 100. It's not 200 pictures anymore.
I was going to ask you how many.
The way it was before. So there's a lot less these days. Depending too of, if I was on a roll, if I was in like a groove while I was out there, or if I was going to try something different, right? Trying a new technique or seeing something a little bit different. There's going to be a lot more photos if I'm more focused on that. But if I'm just out on a leisurely walk and waiting around for things and capturing one or two or three things throughout the day. Yes, okay, I get home, upload it, sort through them just a little bit, maybe flag the ones I remember that I liked, and then yeah, 3 days later I might go through, look at them again, just decide, okay, well, was that really good, or was it just my initial emotions towards that photo? Because you find sometimes you look through stuff that you didn't pick out that day, and you're like, oh, wow, that was actually the shot of the day, not this one that I thought I really, really liked. Right?
Yeah, done that before.
So I feel like, the more time spent between the time you took the picture and the time you process it, or even the time you post it, or the time you decide, right, to that this is a photo that you're going to be presenting. I think the more time between, the better. I mean, you're just going to see a lot more. Little details, how it feels to you, right? So I think that that's basically what we say is let it marinate for a little bit.
That's a good description, actually.
And just see if there's any goodness in it, and then later on decide, okay, well, yes, it tells a story. Okay, I like the way the light is. The composition is really nice. The reaction of the person to the other person, that's sweet. That's beautiful. Okay, I'm ready to share this to people. And I've learned to also set up little galleries on my iPhone or my iPad, and have a few of the friends that I have take a look at it. The ones that I feel like, okay, they would give me good critiques on my photos, and not say, hey, everything's great. You want people to say,
valued comment is what you want, isn't it? Valued comment. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, if there's any advice, is find somebody out there you respect photographically. Respect. You admire their work. You admire the way they do things, and see if they have time to look at your work,
Yeah.
or befriend them or something like that. Um, but I think that's priceless, is to get somebody else's opinion
Yeah.
of your shot. If
Well,
they're not
that's
going,
interesting.
whoa, then maybe
That's
it's
it.
not that good.
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned it because as I said to you before we started the show, I joined the Arcanum run by Trey Ratcliffe through Google Plus and the like,
Oh
and
yeah.
Valerie Jardin is my well, they call them masters, they're not teachers, but and I think what's actual fact developed because there's 20 people in the class. When we
Hmm.
put our images up, we're all making valid comments about each other's work, and it is so important that to hear those comments, because there are things which we take a photograph of something, and there's something there which we just don't see.
Right.
It's part of the image and it's in the background, and they say, well, that's a little bit of an interference there, Paul. Just crop that out or clone it out if you want to, or
Sure.
maybe throw the image away because it doesn't fit what you're actually looking to develop. So having good, honest comment stroke critique, I think is so important. But also one thing which you mentioned there, you're learning from your own photography, and I think there are a lot of photographers out there that don't actually do that. I think they just carry on their own merry way, thinking what they're doing is correct, and they're not sitting back and working through their work and looking at their work in a very critical manner. And I think probably by doing this break, taking the enthusiasm out of the day that you've had, if you've had a great day shooting, that obviously overflows into your processing. Taking that break of 3 days and then looking at the images at a later time, I think that must be. I'm going to try this because I think that's a great point you make there. To
Well,
process your images.
also when and I'm guilty of this, but when you first start out, especially with street photography, you can be taking a lot of pictures,
Yeah.
and your eyes aren't attuned yet to what is good and what is bad. You're just wanting to go out and take pictures. And what happens a lot of times is you excitedly go run home, you process your photos, and you know post up like 50 of the pictures that you took that day out of like the 300. That's still too much
Yeah.
in one day. What ends up happening is then, okay, the person looks back and they're like, oh well, and honestly, if you look back, there's probably maybe one photo out of that whole day that really is the one that kind of works. So really just taking your time, especially when you're just starting out, just take your time and let it just sit for a while, and don't worry about showing people anything.
Yeah.
Just maybe a small group of people, maybe a Flickr group or a Facebook group or a secret group of friends, a private group of friends that you want to show. Because then you won't have so much crap out there. I mean,
That's very true. And I think
you won't have to delete so much later on once you realize, oh my god,
exactly right.
All of my stuff has been crap.
And we've all done that.
Now that I know,
exactly.
I've suddenly woken up and realized just how bad all my stuff is, you won't have to delete so much.
Yeah, the thing that's coming across here is quality, not quantity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly right. And taking your time. Great advice. When you mentioned it at the when we were having that chat, I think their show name is great at the pub. I think it was absolutely super.
The one thing that was missing that I wish I had, but it was way too early,
was a drink.
If I had a pint or a bottle or something like that, it would have been great.
I was okay for time on that, but I knew it was early morning for you, or mid morning for you. Yeah. Anyway, okay, this is great, Rinzi. Thank you so much for your time and chatting away about your views and how you go about it. We're at that time of the show where I like to do a one-word association with the photographers which I mentioned before the show. So I'm going to give you a name of a photographer, and you think of a word, and then we'll go from there. I was just going to mention that I was talking to Spiros, a friend from the pub.
Yes.
And when I said this photographer to him, he wanted to say the F word.
Really?
Yeah, but he didn't. He didn't.
Okay.
William Klein.
I would
Don't
just say
say it.
passion.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
That was an
Okay.
F word, but
I
it's
won't
passion.
say anything else negative. I'll try not to be negative here. I'm all about being positive about stuff, so I'll
Yeah,
keep it
exactly.
there.
No, no. I think what he was, Spiros, in actual fact, explained why. There was a documentary shown over in Europe. I think you've probably seen it in the States as
Yeah,
well.
on YouTube. Yeah.
And when he left, after he got in the car, he gave the gesture to the photographer, and that's where he said, "That's where I got the idea of the F word." But William Klein, great photographer. I saw an
Yeah.
exhibition of his last year actually in London in the Tate Gallery. He was sharing the exhibition with Dido Moriyama. I don't know whether you're familiar
Yeah.
with Dido's
Yeah.
work. You are? Okay, that's
I've
great.
actually been here in LA and got a signed book from him, which
Did
is
you? Oh,
pretty cool.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great photographer as well. I really love his work. But William Klein was just a fascinating exhibition of work. Not only his photography, but his art as well, which a lot of
Mhm.
people don't associate with him, do they?
Right.
One of my favourite photographers. I'm really growing to like this photography. When he first appeared, that I first saw him rather, I wasn't really taken with it. A guy by the name of Martin Parr.
Yeah. Tourist Flash.
Nice one, yes, tourist fasting. I think his work, which he's done down on the south coast or in the coastal regions of our country, and just given them that analog look to the image,
Yeah.
and you look at it and you go, that's how that's how we were back in the 60s and the 70s.
Mhm.
It's really great sort of work. How
But
about
the way he captures moments too. I mean, just so uncanny moments. Like
yes,
those are the things that I strive for, and maybe just don't see yet. You know what I mean? Like that. But that's great. I love his work.
I think he's got this real documentary type style to his work, which I suppose being a street photographer you're
Mhm.
documenting what you're seeing and that'll
Sure.
stay. But he's I think he takes it just that stage further, doesn't he? The next one on my list here is André Cortege.
Godfather. One
Fair
of the
enough.
Godfathers.
Yeah, the
I
one of
would
the
say.
Godfathers. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
awesome photographer,
anybody
isn't
who's getting into photography, especially street photography, I mean, those are the probably the first books
he? Yeah.
they would get. I mean, I'm just assuming here, but I mean, it was one of the first books that I got. Besides,
Mm,
you know, Bresson
yeah.
and well, which books do I have here? Newton. I have Newton, of course,
Yeah.
but that's more of a fashion. Um, Callahan. Harry
Yeah.
Callahan. So stuff like that. But the black and whites, like if you're into black and white street photography, you'll probably
Mm.
have that book.
And I think exactly, and I think there's another photographer we're going to come to in a second. The thing that amazes me is that the time and the period that these photographs were taken, the
Mhm.
quality of the image, the quality of the story, and obviously the skill at taking the photograph as well. And obviously we talk about Cartier-Bresson as basically the one. He's everyone has. Well, I don't know if anyone has got a bad word to say about his photography. Dare they say that? But the other photographer I was going to mention is Brassai, popular for his
Yeah,
photographs in Paris.
yeah. Straight photography. I mean, is sort of that era, right, of straight
Yeah.
photography. That I guess that if you think about the evolution of it, that's sort of where street photography kind of
Mm,
came from. You know what I mean? Just people doing straight photography evolved to, okay, well,
mm.
as the camera became smaller and easier to carry
Exactly right.
around,
Yeah. Yeah.
just,
Because obviously
I
there was
mean,
a
it's just
move.
natural.
They were documenting their life, obviously. Then, of course, wars were on the scene, and a lot of these guys were basically involved with, war scenes, whether it was on the front line or whether it was basically in the towns and cities that were being affected by war. So, yeah, this is this general progression of imagery. Next one on
Yeah.
my list is William Egglestone, another one of my favorite photographers.
Uh, Banal bikes.
Right.
I
Can you
think that's
explain that?
well. He was very good at well, at least the book that I have and that I've seen, it's he's very much into the banal, the ordinary, um, the random scene, but it just the way that he composes it
Yeah,
makes it a lot more interesting than just somebody else taking the same picture of
exactly right.
that
I mean,
bike, that car, that
the infamous one of the
post.
tricycle in front of the building. You know, you think how many times have people taken that photograph, but because of the angle that he took the shot,
Exactly.
it just
Exactly.
it's
The sign with
it's
the
an awesome
clouds that
image.
look like a that looks like the have you know
Yeah,
what I'm talking about? Yeah, with the
yeah, I know the one.
I
Yeah,
mean, wow. You
yeah,
know
I
what I
know.
mean?
He's he's out there, isn't he? Okay, I've done that one. Ouija.
Paparazzi in a way. I mean,
Yeah,
that's because of just how close and the flash and um sort of that type of world that he must have had
yeah,
to live in.
that he worked in. Yeah,
Yeah.
the word for me is crime, basically, because a lot of his photography was crime scenes, wasn't it?
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, the final one. I haven't really studied this photographer, but there's a lot of people in my in the cohort at on the Arcanum that are talking about him. So I'm going to have to really study on him. Gary Winogrand.
Ah, yes. Probably the word that fidgety. Because
I've
if you've
heard,
seen his
yeah,
YouTube
Ted Forbes
video,
said something about it. He was a bit.
he's sitting there. I'll use this. He's sitting there just doing
All
all
right,
kinds of stuff, and then he'll take a picture, and then he'll move his camera around a lot, and then he'll take a picture again. And that, I mean, that was very memorable on his YouTube video when he was being interviewed. Was just how much he moved the camera around so much, and
right,
I
yeah,
you know, I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just part of his personality that he was like that. I didn't, haven't watched too many of his videos, but the one that I have watched
mm.
was where he was doing that. And he was at Venice Beach and he's taking pictures and, I mean, he took a,
I've got to
a
study up on
ton
him
of
actually because
photos.
everybody I'm talking to is saying that what a great work he's done, and I haven't really studied up. Interestingly enough, the way you've described him there, I watched a video on Linda McCartney, Paul McCartney's
Uh-huh.
wife, who sadly died a few years ago. She was a great photographer that worked on Rolling Stone and magazines of that nature, and she did exactly the same thing apparently. Mick Jagger, I think it was either Mick Jagger or one of the other top artists at the time, was sitting on the couch and said, "Well, how do you want me to pose for you, Linda?" And she said, "No, let's just have a chat first." And they're talking away, and Paul McCartney described it on the television. He said she just went click, took the photograph. That's it, we're done. And that was the image. She'd literally just got everyone to relax and had the camera in her hand and done. Star, absolute star, quality. That's great. Thank you very much indeed for that, Rincy. I like hearing what photographers and presenters of shows have to say about what really are, in my impression, the best of the best. It's nice
Yeah.
to hear what people,
Well, I mean,
in one word.
if you look at Gary Winogrand, you know, a lot of people admire his work, and there's a lot of people out there who don't really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They, they get him on his editing. That he
Okay.
shot a lot but didn't edit his work. And so that's where people are like, well, you
Mm.
know, is he really great? Because yeah, he took the pictures, but he didn't choose his own pictures. In fact, he didn't even develop most of his
Mm. But you see,
the roles that he has.
when you think of the other photographers like David Bailey and Norman Parkinson and that, they didn't do their own processing work. They took the photograph, and the
Sure,
photograph was put in, and then they'd sit with the editor and they say, "That's how I want that image to look."
sure.
Do that
Well,
for different
there's the
process those
development
days.
part, but there's the editing part as well. I
Mm.
mean,
Exactly right.
a lot of people felt like he didn't choose his own the photos that actually are you know out
Yeah.
now, you know, or the things that ended up in books and things like that. It was more like maybe Vivian Maier right now, where there are a select group of
Mm.
people just choosing the ones they like
Yeah.
versus the ones that maybe she would have liked to show or what
You
Winogrand would have wanted to show. So I
you're
mean,
touching on a similar conversation I had with Ted Forbes last week, and I think it's
yeah,
very, very important that I think this is where the populace, the people involved in photography are going the wrong way with Vivian Mayer. I think there's a lot of work that has been shown, and I took this from Ted. I take no credit for it because Ted Forbes made the comment, and I do agree with what he said. I think there's a lot of her work which is being shown, which I think she would have preferred not to have been shown.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think there's people there, and I can understand it. They own the image. They want to make some money out of it. After all, it's a business that they've created for themselves. Right. But I just wish, like you've said many times, just hold back a little bit. Let's not have the quantity. Let's have the quality out there.
Yeah.
It's very important, isn't it? Rinsey, this has been absolutely superb, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on my show at relatively short notice. You know, after we spoke on Sunday, I asked you on the following day. I thought I'd strike while the iron's hot, so to speak.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sparing the time.
I also like the concept of your site and the way that you've chosen to sort of get out there is the one camera, one lens. You know, I mean, that's.
Thank you.
It really does make it easier when you go out with just one camera and one lens.
Exactly right.
I agree with that concept. Forward.
I go back. I'm very fortunate in my line of business, my day job, which is a project manager for exhibition stand building. So I do get out to these cities around Europe, and I'm very fortunate. And for around about 2 or 3 years, I take 3 cameras, 5 lenses in my backpack, and I'll be off around the city taking these photographs. And the amount of times that I used to say, I'd have my D200 at the time, Nikon D200. Shall I have my 35mm? Shall I take my 50? Shall I put my 7300 on? And really, that process was just jamming in my brain. It was getting in the way of me taking a photograph. And it wasn't until I saw the videos with Zach Arias and Dave Hobby talking about the Fujis and everything else, I just stopped and I thought, I don't need all this gear. This is ridiculous. You know, I had a film camera, an old F65 for transparency film shots, D200, sometimes a D50 as well as a backup. I'd also have the Nikon V1, so that's another system.
Oh, wow.
And I was just carrying just far too much equipment around. Switched the Fuji with the 1855, photography came back to me. I was just so happy, you know, and the camera is just a joy to use. Little bit of a plug for Fuji, but that's the way I feel about it now. I wish the bigger companies like Nikon and Canon had seen this move and had got themselves involved with this type of camera, but that's their choice. Right. And so one camera, one lens was born, and from that I've taken it to Live and Uncut, which is, I've always wanted to do this show, and I was encouraged by Martin Bailey to just get out there and do it, but stick with it. You know, but don't be disappointed if you don't get a show out on a particular week. Just keep going. So I'm really enjoying it. Yeah. I'm meeting some great people and great photographers, and I just love your work. End of story. I think your work is fantastic, and I really, anybody who watches this show on YouTube afterwards, I'll put in all the links on my blog later on. Just go and take a look at Rinsey Ruiz photography, and I'll put the links on, and just have a look. And awesome. And and obviously, if you want to get yourself a lesson, I think you just got to send an email and have a chat with the guy. I think you'll get some pretty good tips. Rinsey, I've just got to say one thing before I go. Thank you so much for joining me today. And yes, folks, as I always do at the end of the day, leave your camera bag at home. All the best, you know. Bye for now.